We're looking at some various financial math definitions. We're just covering the basics here. You can always find more information on the internet. The bank websites are a good spot. Investopedia is another website that is good for learning things about financial information. So I'm going to highlight some of the key definitions that you need to know, at least for this course. Principal, when we talk about money and a principal amount, it's the sum of money that you are investing or you're borrowing. So let's say you saved up some money from your summer job, you've got $1,000 and you want to invest that money. That $1,000 is what we call the principal. Or maybe you want to buy a car and you need to borrow $3,000. It's a used car, but you've got some money for the down payment. You're going to pay. You're going to borrow $3,000. That $3,000 is your principal amount. We use a capital letter P to represent that principal. Term, when we talk about a loan or an investment, we talk about the term of the loan or investment. It's the length of time that you are investing or borrowing the money, or the agreement, the time length you're going to take to pay the money back. That's called the term. A percent, of course, means out of 100. So anytime you want to take a value, a percent, and change it into its decimal form, you're going to take that percent amount. So let's say you had 5%, you would take 5 and divide by 100, and that's going to change it to its decimal form, which is 0.05. So just keep that in mind if you have trouble with that. Another word that comes up in finances is annum. Annum is just Latin for year. Okay, so think of the word annual. Annual just means yearly. So you will sometimes see an interest rate posted at maybe 7.9% and then slash per A. It means per year. That yearly rate sometimes needs to be changed into a monthly rate if it's compounding monthly and so on, but we'll get into that in a minute. Interest, capital letter I, is the amount of money earned or charged if you're borrowing, earned for investing or charged for borrowing on a sum of money. So interest can be a good thing if you are saving money, but it can be a really bad thing if you are having to pay back money because it's the extra you have to pay. It's the cost of your loan. We often use a capital letter A to represent the word amount or the end value, the sum of the original principal and the interest. It's the total amount at the end of the term. Another thing that we talk about here, so I've got this little formula. The amount at the end really is your principal plus your interest here. So this is, of course, interest from above, and your P is, of course, the principal. So principal is the P, and your A is your final amount. Okay, maturity. Maturity here is not talking about your own age, but it's the time. It's the when an investment or loan reaches the end of its term, it is said to have matured or to have reached maturity. So your farmer type folk, we talk about the crops reaching their maturity. It's when it's ready to be harvested. So it's at the end of their growing period. In a year, we need to know particular things. So hopefully you know there are 12 months in a year. There are 52 weeks in a year, and most years there are 365 days. And they will adjust for a leap year, but 365 is your standard year. So we're also going to fill in this chart, which is the number of times per year. So if we are working with something that's annual or annually, that's once per year. If something happens semi-annually, semi means half, every half year or twice per year. Quarterly, if we take $1 and divide it into quarters, that's 4 pieces. So if we have quarterly interest, it's being added 4 times per year. Monthly would be added in 12 times per year. Weekly would be 52 times per year. And daily is 365 times per year. All right, so those are things you should know. I'm going to talk here a little bit about different savings and different things that you can put your money into. Many of you will have just a regular student account at this point. You should probably not be getting charged any fees you might earn a little bit of interest. So that's not your typical checking account. You've got a student account instead. But once you hit a certain age, when you're out of school or by the time you turn 19, they're going to switch you over to a regular adult account, which is a checking account. That's used for your daily banking. So anytime you make a debit purchase with your phone app or with your debit card. If you make a payment towards a bill, if you get money deposited for pay, it usually goes into your regular daily checking account. Your bank usually charges a monthly fee, so you might get a particular fee per month, or you could get a fee per use. So if you didn't use your debit very often, if you don't do a lot of these, what are called transactions, so let me put these are called transactions. These are things that occur, transactions, within your bank account, actions. If you don't have a lot of transactions, you might go with a fee per use. So every debit purchase you make might be $1.25 or something like that, $1.50. Depends on what kind of an agreement you have. If you use it a lot, you might want to go with a flat monthly fee. Now, these are negotiable. You can talk to the people in your bank. It's good to get used to being able to do those things to negotiate your monthly fee. The money that's in your checking account usually does not earn interest. As a student, you might be earning some minimal interest, but once you get to be an adult, the checking account is not a venue for saving money. It's just for your daily banking. The bank looks to make money off of you for that. All right. If you want to save money, you can do something called a savings account. Quite often they pay very minimal amount of interest. So your interest rate might only be like 0.5% per annum, 0.5%, which is very small. There are many other ways that you can save money, but this is a possible place to put money to force you to save, to be able to put money into maybe some other types of savings once you accumulate enough, or it could be a savings for a rainy day kind of an account. Sometimes there are online or other banking institutions, and I'm thinking, I'm not promoting, I don't want you to think I'm promoting, but Tangerine is one where their savings account are usually a little bit more than what the banks, your brick and mortar banks are. Last time I checked, I think it's a 1% interest rate, or at one point it was up to maybe 2.4%, but it fluctuates depending on what the economy is doing at that time. And given that we're in a pandemic right now, these interest rates, of course, are quite low. All right, so this savings account is not meant for your daily transactions. The fees are higher. If you start taking money out of your what's called a savings account, they're going to ding you for much higher fees. There are things called Canada Savings Bonds. It's an investment that was created by the government in 1946 to help people save money for their future, while the government takes that money then and uses it for infrastructure projects, so building roadways, building bridges, building, taking care of different things that are good for people in Ontario. And then at the end of the term, you have access back to your money, but they pay you to be able to use your money. So it was very promoted. We don't hear about Canada Savings Bonds as much as we used to once upon a time. There are also things called guaranteed investment certificates. These can be purchased from a bank, trust company, or credit union, which guarantees a specific interest rate that will be fixed, will be the same over a fixed period of time, over the term. So it guarantees that you're going to get paid a particular amount of money. There are things called mutual funds. They aren't guaranteed. So you could stand to lose money with them, but you could stand to earn more money, a higher percentage than what you can with a GIC. But as a young person, your future is coming up and you probably want access to that money that you're trying to save. So these are some low risk investment things that I'm talking about here, the savings bonds and the GIC. There's all kinds of things you can research on the internet about these things. Again, use a trusted website like a bank or a credit union or the Government of Canada website for information on that. Now, in terms of interest, this is where our focus is going to be. We'll be calculating the interest just so you get an idea of how that works. There's the thing called simple interest, where you only earn interest on the original sum of money invested or borrowed. So your interest, your capital I, is going to equal interest. I think I spelled that wrong. Your principal, So this is your principal amount as defined above. The R stands for the rate of interest. So it has to be changed into the decimal form. Decimal form. And then your T is your time in years. Okay, and we'll do some calculations with that in a moment. Compound interest, you earn interest on the interest as well as your original sum of money. So this formula looks a little different. Your amount overall is equal to your principal and then times 1 plus I to the exponent of n. Now, that is your exponential function. Principal, think that a value, this reminds me of y equals a b to the x. Your a is your initial amount. Or your a here, not your capital A. Your little a here is your initial amount, which is your initial principal. The b is always 1 plus the percent you are growing by. So your I here is your interest rate per compounding period. Interest rate per compounding period. So we'll talk about that when we get into some examples. And then the n is the total number of compounding periods. Total number of compounding periods. And again, we'll do some examples with this. Total number of compounding periods. Going back to simple interest, the I is your interest. Remember your amount at the end, your A will equal your principal plus your interest. And that is a really strange looking A. Let's fix that. All right, so we're going to move into the second side of this, but I think I'll start a new video for that.